Here we go.
Morning, everybody.
Okay. Good morning, everybody.
Yeah.
We'll calling the meeting to order here at 10:06. And let's see, can we go straight to our administrative matters? Could you please go over the rules for inviting public comment, and then also our committee's official charge, please, Christy?
Sure. Let me just go official here. The committee invites public comment and input at the end of each agenda item with a 1-minute limit for each speaker. We welcome more feedback through email, as well as proposals to the committee that can become future agenda items. And as always, our email is bikeandwalkways@wellfleet-mass.gov.
-MA, you're right, yeah. Okay.
Oh, thank you, yes.
Yeah.
And the committee's charge is that the Bike and Walkways Committee is hereby established to consider ways to provide safe areas for biking and walking. The Board of Selectmen believes that these activities, the Select Board, I always want to update that, should be available seasonally and year-round, as they are an important means of local transportation, are popular activities in the town, and promote good health. The Bike and Walkway Committee is charged with the following tasks. 1, to work with the Cape Cod National Seashore, the towns of Provincetown and Truro, and the Cape Cod Commission to establish the continuation of the bike trail northward into Provincetown. And 2, to prepare a plan for future bike and walking routes throughout the town of Wellfleet. And that's that. Well, so I think that now we can do the near-term committee meeting calendar.
Hi, do we have a good connection?
Yeah.
Okay, I completely lost the last several seconds, so.
Oh,
Okay.
So we're now to the committee meeting calendar.
That next week,
we are losing you a little, Pete. Pete, can you try again?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, now I can.
Okay, so I'm not sure. I've lost about the last minute of what was being said.
So we're up to the near-term committee meeting calendar.
Right.
I know we have our next meeting is planned for May 7th at 10 a.m. Is that right, according to everyone else?
Typically that would be the case. I want to remind everybody, if you can hear me, that the Friends of the Cape Cod Rail Trail, we've been communicating with them, and they'd like to hear what we're up to, and so we'll be going over that with them on May 5th, and that will be a Zoom meeting. Since we're likely to have a quorum of our meeting, that will constitute a committee meeting in accordance with open meeting laws. So we'll handle that appropriately. That will be considered a committee meeting, and we can see if that suffices for next week in terms of having a committee meeting based on what we're going to talk about today. But yeah, we stay on our bi-weekly schedule.
And what time is that on May 5th?
I'll send out a confirmation email, but it's I believe it's 4 p.m. Okay, so good opportunity to talk to an interest group who's you'd like to know what's going on with respect to continuation of Bikeway from the Cape Cod Rail Trail toward Provincetown. Okay. Other than that, I mean, we're staying on a bi-weekly schedule unless someone has another idea, or we can talk about it as we go through the agenda.
Great. Well, then,
Okay.
I was thinking I move that we approve the minutes from our committee meeting on April 7th.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So is there any discussion for the minutes?
No.
Okay. Well, all in favor of approving the minutes for April?
Aye.
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 Right.
I said, did we get Ned's vote?
Yeah, I
Yep.
have my hand up.
Okay,
I
great.
forgot.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're unanimous. All right.
I have the agenda up on the screen. So next up is the bikeway analysis preparation.
So, in accordance with our analysis plan, it calls for us to do a trial run of the criteria using roadway or bikeway segments that are not part of any of the possible alternative routes through Wellfleet. And so we can conduct that scoring of these test segments, review the results, and apply lessons learned as we commence the actual analysis. Two of business for this one is to set a timeline for doing the tests, and the other is to choose to determine which segment we're going to do the test analysis on. So if we could talk about the timeline first.
We lost you, Pete.
Yeah.
As into Andy. Okay.
That sounds better.
Pete, we just got you back, I think. We were talking about establishing the timeline.
Right. Can we establish a timeline to get all the to get those preliminary to get that completed by next Friday, 1 week from today?
Sure.
Sure.
Okay. The other items we need to agree what those will be. You know, I know there's been previous discussion about this, you know, trying to pick some segments to give us a wide range to choose from that will help us to kind of flex our scoring of the analysis, so we can do an honest to goodness test of our scoring. So if we pick a segment that we think is probably not going to score very high, and if we pick a segment that we think is guaranteed to score very, very high, and then we pick something in the middle, or maybe something that's got some diverse landscape to it, that would be my recommendation. Any other thoughts?
No, I think that sounds great. Like we talked about yesterday, it's perfect because there are 3 different types of roads. We can see how everybody's scoring. If it looks like we've got the same idea of how to weigh the criteria, I think that's perfect.
So if we were to start, let's talk about ideas for the 3. I thought about it a bit, and personally, if we were to pick a segment that we think is going to basically represent the ideal for I mean, in that it's fairly local. It runs through I believe it was sponsored by the National Seashore. Has some very good bikeway attributes, and would give us
Pete,
a
I think
chance to.
Pete, I think we lost you in the middle of that, but I know from our discussion, I think you're talking about the Head of the Meadow Bike Trail, right?
Right. Can you hear me any better now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's got some good attributes, and it would give us a chance to kind of test our scoring system to have a trail that's a known good quantity.
Yeah,
That's
it's an
a
excellent trail.
fantastic trail.
Yeah, it is an excellent trail. That's a 5-star. Although we have to wait for our rating.
Could I ask a question about, are surfaces included in the test? Contralia, in the test criteria which you would score by, are surfaces included in that because there are 3 separate surfaces on a National Seashore Trail, right? There's the asphalt, the gravel, and then the painted asphalt. Does the test cover those criteria?
I think at this point, we're just trying to establish a trail. That's kind of a,
Just rights of way. Okay.
It's important. I know what you're saying. But yeah, for right now, I think we want to just establish the trail, and that's going to be something that's going to be decided by the DCR, I think, down the road. But I believe we don't have that in our criteria at all.
Because it's out of our hands.
Yeah, right. That's up to the DCR. All we can do right now is establish the pathway, and then what they do with it. Even though that's important, don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's part of our mandate right now.
I think it's important that we not test a segment that we're going to evaluate for the path.
Yeah, right. And that's kind of why we were thinking about that, the bikeway and it cut the other two. You're absolutely right. We want to get segments that are not included in any of the proposed routes.
One of them, since we're all very familiar, the roundabout going into Orleans. I mean, that would, I think, pose be if we're looking for one that wouldn't score high.
Yeah. Or the segment in front of PJ's along the highway. Score. Well, we don't want to get into that at all. So, because that is a potential route.
Yeah, so that roundabout in Orleans, I mean, the one going from Eastham to Orleans, not the new one by the Lost Dog Pub. What if we use that as one of them? So we could do that one, and then the Head of the Meadow, and then we just need one more.
Yeah, we were the Cape Cod Trail itself.
Oh,
We were another proposal we're thinking of is like Black Pond Road, which isn't on any of the segments proposed to this route, but it's very similar to a lot of the segments that are proposed. So I think that would be a good middle of the road one. Something like you're saying there, that, a really difficult one, and then the Head of the Meadow is the ideal one.
Guys, did I get back in?
You are back, yes.
Okay, I pulled over. It's too iffy when I'm moving down the road. So I think I've got a good signal here. Okay.
Oh, I don't know if you heard, but I suggested for one of the routes to be the roundabout, and we're going between Eastham into Orleans.
The roundabout.
Yeah,
Wow.
you said we should choose one that's not likely to score well. So scoring a bike path going on the roundabout from Eastham into Orleans.
The only trouble with that maybe is that is so bad that it's going to guaranteed get a 0 across the board, Yeah, maybe something not quite that bad is that it's really bad.
Well, that's an interesting idea though.
Yeah.
Lance, you're most familiar with our computational method. What do you think?
I think we definitely have to have something at the low end. And by the way, it can't score 0. It can
Yeah,
score
that's true.
1.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and the potential range is 100 to 500 of a scoring of a pass. So we got I think it'd be very useful to have a really bad one to get the feeling of that judgment. And are we going to go over the rating, Pete?
I think that's a great idea. I think we should to try to normalize our scoring here. But yeah, if we could just if we determine which segments we think for this test, I think that let's get off of that topic here. So the two I've heard are the Orleans Rotary, or the as an example of something that probably will score near the bottom. The High Head bike trail, which is newly paved, and for anybody who's been on it, pretty nice. And then go ahead.
I had suggested, we talked about the Black Pond Road as the middle of the Rotary segment.
What are people's thoughts on that one? That's in Wellfleet. It's not currently on any of the alternatives. We don't want to give anyone a wrong impression that the next thing you know, someone's talking about, well, the Bike and Walkways Committee is looking at Black Pond Road for a bike trail. And that, of course, isn't the case. That's not true. But we want to make sure that, I mean, if we could find something that's outside of the town limits, it would help us avoid that risk. But I agree with you, Ned. I mean, that's, we've chatted about it. Black Pond Road would be that's a nice stretch.
It would be so helpful because it obviously shares a lot in common with
the
places we're doing.
Right.
Do you guys think it could be confusing? Will it for people outside of the committee to think that we're doing that? Or I'm sure we could think of roads like it outside of Wellfleet. Well, I don't know. It's just so perfectly testing what we need to test.
Yeah.
In that it's got the terrain, the elevations, a lot of the features that
and some private property and some natural resources and all of the things that I would love to iron out.
Yeah.
I think that's persuasive. I really want to, I think we ought to have something that's representative. And if someone comes to the wrong conclusion, it's easy to set that straight.
Exactly.
I mean, people.
It's not that easy to set straight. A few weeks ago, somebody was spreading that the Bike and Walkway Committee was dead set on having Forest Road, and that was completely not the case, and it was actually pretty difficult to clear that up, and still people don't understand. So I am hesitant about choosing anything in Wellfleet for this test run for that reason.
I know a fire road in Eastham. The issue with it is that it's almost dead level, so it doesn't have the it doesn't really cross much in terms of elevation contours.
What about going through a neighborhood in Orleans be helpful? It would be, I'm trying to think of, I can think of some that are unpaved and by natural resources and some private property.
Yeah, I mean, if we do you have one in particular you would recommend?
I'm looking at Rebecca. I'm trying to remember the road names, but I can think of a few neighborhoods, especially if there was one with a pond right by the middle school behind the police station.
Oh, you mean Pilgrim Lake? Yeah, that part. I mean, Mayflower Point's an association.
Okay,
So I don't know if we're having that. I don't know how that works.
right.
Or
Or
this-
even just behind the police station across from the middle school. And where we just were yesterday, and there's the little pond and there's some elevation, but it's a neighborhood, so that's not the same.
Can I suggest, Old Kings Highway in Truro, which you can pick up from Long Nook Road? That nails the same thing, same kind of contours, a lot of the issues that we're looking at. So it'd be a very similar road, and it's in Truro, so we're not going to get any issues with back, So I don't know. It's a beautiful road. It'll be a nice road to check out.
So is it
goes-
similar to Black Pond Road or Old Kings Highway or Slough Pond Road?
Absolutely. Maybe
Yeah, what is,
a little more elevations than those, I would say, but in general, it's it's a fire road that's real similar to those roads. Yeah.
is it anything that the Truro committee is considering? I mean, we need to, we also don't want to send the wrong signal to the Truro committee. But
Yeah, I think we should stay away from Truro's jurisdiction, actually, for that reason. What about, I know there's some dirt roads in East Ham. There's the Old Orchard Farm Road, which is off of, which road is that? Yeah, is it Massasoit?
Is it behind Little Capistrano?
Yeah,
That's a great spot.
no,
Yeah.
it's not, but, yeah, it's closer to maybe it is. I can't remember.
Old Orchard Road, is that what you're saying?
What?
Was that Old Orchard Road? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Isn't that off Brackett Road? You can get it off Brackett Road and it goes further north. There is an orchard or Old Orchard off Brackett Road.
okay, then that must
Yeah.
be- so
Yeah.
that is Capistrano.
It would be nice if it was something with a pond. That's why I was trying to figure out Orleans.
Mm.
There's Wiley Pond.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
perfect. Those neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Do the roads all dead end at Wiley Pond?
I think so.
Yeah.
Don't they
So,
dead end at the pond itself?
okay, so perhaps we should have someone take an action to recommend something. I mean, if we could get, or can we narrow this down to one recommendation so that we can,
Well, I thought we were choosing 3. Are we choosing 3 or we only need to do 1?
we need one more. If we talk about using the High-Head Bikeway, we talk your recommendation of the Orleans Rotary, the East Ham Orleans Rotary. Do we have one that, similar to some of the fire roads that are under consideration, but we don't want to confuse things in Wellfleet by using a Wellfleet trail? Similarly, Truro, is there something else we can do in East Ham? Again, this is just a test case.
I think the Old Orchard, I know it doesn't have a pond. Can we just say there's a pond on there? We can.
I mean, quite honestly, I don't know that the pond's going to make a terrible amount of difference for our scoring, but okay, how would you describe that segment then? When you say Old Orchard, is it from someplace? Do you have a start and end point?
Is it Massasoit or is it? I'm not sure. Let me look at it.
I'm pretty sure it's Brackett Road and to Nauset Cable Road. You know where that set of lights is? I think that's called Nauset Road, right at Poits. And I'm pretty sure that Old Orchard runs in between those two. Unless I'm thinking of another road, but
No, it's if
we'll look on.
I'm
Okay.
looking it up right now.
Yeah,
You've got
right.
it. Ned, you have it. It is. It's
Yeah.
right between. It
Well, then
ends at Nauset Road.
Right, and it ends at Brackett Road on the other end, I think. Or maybe it goes through.
I think it goes a little further. I'm looking at
Yeah.
zooming in here.
That's fine, because if you have something that crosses a major street, that's fine. That helps us with our scoring to flex the criteria a little bit.
Great.
Okay,
Let me just throw, I'd like to throw something in. I don't know all of these. Are any of them on Route 6?
yes,
No.
the Orleans
Oh,
Rotary is.
Rotary, yeah.
Okay, because we definitely need to make sure some segment is on Route 6.
Right, and she was Rebecca, when she recommended that, is picking a very congested traffic area that's a traffic concern. So, or it has a lot of traffic at any rate. It's certainly not very conducive to biking.
Okay,
So, nobody would probably ever consider putting a bikeway in there. Maybe that makes it good if we want to test the low end of the scoring spectrum. Okay.
So I
The thought
have
on Lance's point there, have we considered scoring the parking lot to Main Street and Wellfleet? The DCR parking lot to Main Street and Wellfleet? See how that scores?
well,
'Cause it sounds-
Who's talking?
that's
It's
Steve
Steve.
talking.
Oh,
Let me just, before we get your comment, I just want to clarify for the minutes here. So Old Orchard Road actually starts on Route 6 and ends at Nauset Road. Should we take that entire segment, or do you guys want to start it at Meeting House Road or something like that?
Yeah, I don't think we have to do the whole way.
we do not need to do the whole way. We just need a short
Yeah.
segment. So
We
does
could-
someone have a recommendation for a short segment along there?
We could take Brackett Road to Nauset Road.
Yeah, that's a good,
Yeah,
Okay,
Okay. And then,
that has the connection aspect.
right.
Yeah, there'll be different aspects to
Yeah.
consider.
Okay.
Okay.
And then for the Orleans Rotary, I just want to clarify where that one will start and end.
Say
Sure.
maybe 200 yards before the Rotary and then go into Orleans as far as Wendy's.
Okay.
so essentially 1/10 of a mile north of the Rotary, 200 yards, give or take at that point, to through the Rotary, and then around, and then exit the Rotary toward Orleans, and as far as the Wendy's.
Yeah.
Okay. So all of those three segments are outside of Wellfleet, which I think we've implicitly described as an important selection criteria. And it provides a range that we can evaluate.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts?
That's great.
I think that works.
Okay, there are some good segments inside Wellfleet, obviously, both on road and off road. But if we can avoid doing a trial assessment on Wellfleet, within Wellfleet, I think that we've avoided potential confusion. All right. Well, I make a motion that we accept these three as a trial.
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
I,
Aye.
All right. Okay, and we're going to be providing, we'll have our scores completed by next Friday. Can we say by noon Friday?
yep,
Okay, we should have had a single motion describing this, but I want to make a motion that we perform this trial and that we've completed our scoring by noon on Friday.
Second.
So, second, all in favor?
I,
Okay. All right. The other thing that we needed to talk about, back to Lance's earlier point, is the definition of our ratings 1 through 5. So, Christy, could you put up the attachment? And perhaps you have. Sorry, I just haven't seen the Word document with the ratings of 1 through 5 defined. There we go.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, Lance, over to you.
Okay. It's really important to get this. If you have this in your thinking, there's some, let me tell you what it means. A 1 means the least of whatever it is you're looking at. So if your criterion is, gosh, we're in 360-degree nature, that's the criterion for a segment. A 1 means this is the least that you can imagine. Everywhere you look, there's no nature. A 5 means this is as much as you can imagine there being. You're not comparing this segment to other segments. You're saying, does this segment have that criteria, least or most? And least, of course, is unsatisfactory. Most is outstanding. So then once you have that in your head, what a 1 and a 5 is, a 3 is right in the middle. It's halfway. It's got about as many negative as positive. It's halfway. And that's really important. Use that 3 for the halfway point. Ask yourself, if you're uncertain about what something is it above a 3 or below a 3? And that'll help you. And then what you want to ask is if it's below a 3 and above a 1, it could be a 2. And you can question whether the 2, is it a, midway between that? Or is it closer to 1 or 3? Keep thinking this closeness. Don't ever think of ratios. This is 3 times as much as something else, because that'll mess up the assumptions underlying the scoring. Just say, of this thing, if I'm looking for greenness, a 5 means there's about as much greenness as there could possibly be here. And a 1 means there's just no greenness that I can detect. And a 3 means it's about halfway. And the 2 is in between the 1 and the 3, and a 4 is between 3 and 5. So that if you can do that and keep that in, it'll be really important. And I'll just tell you what it is. It'll ensure that we're on an interval scale here, and that's important. And you don't have to know that, but that's part of the assumptions that we can average and do other things with these scores.
Lance is, Lance is like a 5, like so almost impossible to have. Like, is that the way we want to look at it? It's like, man, that's almost never. And likewise, conversely with 1, is that like so bad that you can almost never think of that? Or do we actually think that, yeah, you can hit 5, it's got to be really good, but it's conceivable. Same thing with the 1. Conversely, it's, what I mean?
The second way, it's not, 1 and 5 are not rare. They should not be thought of as rare. A 1 can be as rare as a 5. It should be thought about the extent to which it occurs. So if you're looking, you're rating, do you have vistas at every moment on your path? You look at it and you say, well, you can. It's possible to have some trails. Yes, you can have that. This one is shy of that, and you judge. If you're on a commercial road, going around the roundabout at Eastham, you don't have nature in you. So think of it as not rare, but as the extent to which you can see it visually. So I'll add that some things, the length of a path or something like that, we'll actually compute that. Most of these criteria, you'll open your eyes and you look and you see if it's there. If it's there really a whole lot, That's close to a 5.
Mhm.
It's not there at all. It's close to 1. It's
Like
in
if it
between.
were, yeah.
I guess I'm
I was
thinking like,
thinking for greenness, Nickerson.
go ahead.
Oh, I was thinking Nickerson Park, biking in Nickerson Park, that's 5 for nature. When you're biking and you can hear the road, but you're still surrounded by nature, well, I think that's still a 4, or it was something like that where we would, yeah. And if you're in
Yeah,
a parking lot, um, that might be a 1.
but right. So look at the words and do that are in the criteria and try. So if a criteria said visually you are in 360-degree nature, you can discount the audio. If it doesn't say that,
Mm-hmm.
then it probably is all your senses. So
Okay.
just and you have to turn off your head about the other criteria too. You just use these one at a time and load it in your head. Okay, now we're talking about this next criteria, and I'm going to forget about the ones I've done. Just focus on that. Read it carefully. You'll have a sheet that explicitly, and then your score sheet will have a phrase to remind you. Read them ahead of time before you go out. And when you're there, get used to that. And nobody's perfect. And so some things may not have been well stated, and we certainly want to find that before we go further. So all of your observations will be helpful.
See, again, Lance, my thought is that it's so key to establish what is a 5 and what is a 1. The in-betweens, I think you can get, the subtleties. But I think that's the most important thing is that we're all thinking on the same track, that 5, boy, that's what I mean. Does gotta be so just perfect? Or are we saying it's close to perfect, but we're gonna call it a 5? Because that's really key to me, because in the whole rating in the end, if it's, if something gets a 5 instead of a 4, it can make the whole difference in which trail we establish. And conversely with the 1s too, is it, do we give something a 1 that it's really abysmal, or is it, this is not that great, I'm going to just give it a 1? That I just think that we all have to be thinking kind of on the same idea. What is a 1 and what is a 5? In between, I think you can then figure it out. You know what I mean?
I got you. I
Yeah.
think it's a great point. And there's 2 ways to respond to that. One way is to say, okay, let's give an example for a 1 or define, and let's
Right.
give one for a 5. The other part is to say, gee, if you do that, you're going to buy, if there are a lot of ways you can get a 1, if it's not just one way, if you can get
Right.
it, then you give one example, and then it's going to bias you towards that one. If you say, this is away from all commercial things, and the example is a 1 is where you see all kinds of factories, or you say you see utility lines all around you, that biases you for not noticing something else. So
Mhm.
I'm open to the wisdom of the committee. Do you want to? It's perfectly reasonable to. I mean, what you say is absolutely the heart of this. Having the anchor for 1 and 5. One way to do this is to look at some criteria with and without the anchors defined and see what we think.
Yeah. See, again, I just think it's real important that we're all on the same page as far as how we rate something. And that's why this test will be great. We'll get a good feel for it. And, this is good what you're saying. I'm already, feeling better
Yeah.
about how we can score it.
I think I was muted. Am I unmuted now?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, I was just gonna, no, it's a good discussion. One thing I would point out is that if you really absorb the definition of each of these ratings, they're approached from different angles, and we just it's really a case of learning to think in terms of these things. You know, we're not grading on a curve. We're looking at these. We're isolating a criterion that we're looking at, and we're thinking of it in terms of these ratings. Unsatisfactory would have to, well, unsatisfactory speaks for itself to some people, but you know, just serious shortcomings. If you want to think of it quantitatively, it's how does it have, or qualitatively, does it have serious shortcomings or does it have minor shortcomings? If it has serious shortcomings and fails to meet the intent of the criteria, then it's an unsatisfactory. As Lance has said, it's not necessarily rare, but it is pretty, it's a severe rating.
I think it
Same-
may be helpful instead of, because Ned, you're right. It's unlikely we're going to have any multiple segments that's going to get a full 5-star. But if we break it down, it may be that it'll get a 5 because there's trees, or a 1 because there's too much traffic. But then you combine, we'll be combining it all. So the overall, so when you break down each little question, it could have a 5 or a 1 because it's either almost like a true or false.
And in that sense, we can go back, and not to steal Lance's thunder, but the computational analysis that's possible, we can go isolate particular goals or objectives, and we can say, okay, which ones score the best on safety, or which ones score the best on, you know, pick one of the other criteria, or excuse me, one of the other objectives or goals. Yeah, we can isolate down the results to that particular item, or we can sum everything together.
Here's what I'd like, let me just throw this into the mix here. Ned, your point is really good. I'm reluctant to give examples because there's so many ways to anchor a 1 and a 5. So could we do this? Let's try to use the criteria. Let's use the criteria without anchors, but where you found it confusing, particularly confusing, please there's a space in the comment on the scoring sheet. Please note that. And then we can look at that. Another thing we'll look at is the disparity between our 5 raters. If I go out and see this one as a 1 and you go out and see it as a 5, the 1s and 5s haven't been anchored right. That it's not that you and I don't see, you know, it's that we have a different idea of what, so that'll help us too. So that's what this testing, one of the things this testing is trying to find out is how good we get. And we're certain to need to revise after this. So if you would note, anytime you have a criterion that you're finding difficult to use, please make a note. And then I'll look at that.
If I could throw in also, Lance, I think that at the root of the ratings 1 through 5 is this idea of a shortcoming. And we talk about minor shortcomings and serious shortcomings. So when as people exercise this, they will come to their personal understanding of what a minor shortcoming looks like. What does a major shortcoming look like? And then, okay, how many minor shortcomings does a particular segment have in this one criteria? You know, or how many major ones does it have? And then this idea of, does it meet the intent of the criteria? Because if a segment fails to meet the intent of a criteria, that's a score of 1. Anyway, Rebecca, are you there,
Yes.
Rebecca? I'm gonna have to drop off the meeting. So my apologies, but I'm on the road. I couldn't be at home for this, and I actually need to drop off now. But
We just
I
have
pulled-
if there's any other bike or walkway issues on the agenda. So I think we can actually maybe wrap it up.
okay. All right, any other issues to discuss then regarding the? I was gonna regarding the scoring 1 through 5.
No.
Okay. Well, Lance, thanks for the description. Well, I can stick around a while longer here. So for other bikeway issues, floor is open.
I don't have any other bikeway issues right now. I think maybe at the next meeting, we can discuss the bike rodeo again. But that can be discussed later. We don't need to discuss that now.
Okay.
Could I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Pete, you had alluded to a couple of things. One of them you said is looking at segments not part of an alternate route. What does that mean?
Looking at, well, for this test case, we don't want
for
to.
the test case. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, this is a test case. So you say you got it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Has
Okay.
Forest Road been discarded as a route?
No.
Okay, that's fine.
That was submitted by, well, I mean, it's been submitted by a member of the public, and we're including all the alternatives that are submitted to us.
I was just saying that some people in the community didn't understand anything that we were doing, and instead it was conveyed to them that was the only route. They didn't understand that we're taking routes from the public and evaluating everything that the public suggests. So that's why I brought that up, that I didn't want to cause any confusion with our test cases, that those were new paths we were evaluating for a route.
Another question. I don't mean to cut you off, Pete, but I have a question. If you
Go ahead.
Pete, you had used the phrase sponsored by the National Seashore to refer to a route or something.
Yes.
Can you elaborate what that meant?
It's a bike route that's in the National Seashore.
Has the National Seashore expressed any preferences with respect to routes through Wellfleet?
Asking about the head of the Meadow Trail in Truro.
Oh, so we're just talking about Truro. Okay.
These are test. That was one of our test scenarios.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite routes.
I was just talking about the test case. We were not discussing any routes that we're considering for Wellfleet's purposes.
Right. That was totally under the agenda item to discuss test cases. And we're picking ones that are outside of Wellfleet.
All right. That's all I have. Thank you, guys.
We had under other items on the agenda, we did have 2 emails that did go into the select board. We've been asked within the public for a copy of one of those emails. So I thought it would be perhaps it's timely or worthwhile for us to go ahead and post those emails to the select board in our minutes. Discussion.
I think that's a great idea. Mm-hmm.
Okay. We can look at those if you want, but the committee these were drafted by the committee, so I'll leave it to you, Christy, as secretary, whether you think we need to excuse me, clerk.
If we could just put them in the next minutes, I think that would be sufficient.
Okay. Any other issues?
No. I don't think so right now.
Okay, so happy hunting on the test cases. Lance, would you please take an action to, well, let's see. I want to make sure we've documented, I guess these three cases I'm turn to Christy as clerk. If you could please send the committee members an email that documents those three test segments, please.
Absolutely.
Thank you, because you'll have access to the recordings, etc. And that way we can make sure that we're all on the same page as we conduct this analysis, so it's not just remembering from the meeting. All right. Other than that, if no other agenda items, I move that the meeting adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you very much. We'll see you
All
next
right.
time.
Good weekend.
Yeah, thanks, everybody.
See ya.